Austin, Texas, biglang sumabog.
May mga nasaktan naman kaya mula sa impact ng house explosion? Ang buong ulat po ng pangyayari ating aalamin maya-maya. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Ricky Matay.
Ako si Nina Richie Alago Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Martes.
Philippine envoy idinulog ang agresyon ng China sa West Philippine Sea sa isinagawang Code of Conduct meeting sa Manila.
Armed Forces of the Philippines nakarecover ng drone na gumagamit ng China Telecom SIM card.
Cambodia nag-deport ng mga Taiwanese nationals papuntang China.
Southern California niyanig ng magnitude 5.2 na lindol.
At Blue Origin all-female crew nakabalik na sa Earth. Sinabi ng Department of Foreign Affairs na idinulog ng mga Philippine envoys sa isinagawang 3-day negotiations ng proposed Code of Conduct sa Manila ang naging agresyon ng China sa West Philippine Sea o WPS.
Ang pagpupulong na ito ay nasa antas na negosasyon ng mga technical working groups ng China at ng ASEAN member states. Ayon sa DFA, binoses ng Pilipinas ang concerns nito sa kasalukuyang sitwasyon sa West Philippine Sea, partikular ang pinakahuling insidente na posibleng ipahamak ang mga barko ng Pilipinas at mga personnel nito. Mariing nanawagan din ang mga Philippine officials na dapat sundin ang umiiral na international laws, katulad narito ay ang United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea o UNCLOS at ang 2016 arbitral ruling na ipinagkaloob sa Pilipinas. Inihayag naman ni Foreign Secretary Enrique Manalo ang commitment ng Pilipinas sa isang epektibo at substantibong Code of Conduct. 4 na ASEAN member states, ang Malaysia, Pilipinas, Vietnam at Brunei ay may sariling territorial claims sa South China Sea. Sa susunod na taon, inaasahan na ang Pilipinas ang susunod na uupo bilang chairman ng ASEAN Bloc.
Ikinatuwa naman ni House Speaker Martin Romualdez ang West Philippine Sea label na inilagay ng Google Maps. Anya, ito ay isang geopolitical affirmation sa maritime claims ng Pilipinas. Dagdag pa ni Romualdez, ang desisyon ng Google ay nakabatay sa matagal na posisyon ng Pilipinas alinsunod sa 2016 arbitral ruling na kumikilala sa legal rights ng Pilipinas sa West Philippine Sea sa ilalim ng international law. Binigyan din ng House Speaker na isang makasaysayang pagkilala sa karapatan at soberenya ng Pilipinas at ipinapakita nito sa mata ng mundo na may legal na bantayan o batayan ang pag-aangkin ng gobyerno sa mga pinagtatalunang teritoryo.
Inanunsyo ng Malacanang na magiging half-day ang pasok sa lahat ng mga tanggapan ng gobyerno bukas. Alinsunod sa ibinabang Memorandum Circular No. 81, papayagan ang work-from-home arrangement mula alas 8 ng umaga hanggang alas 12 ng tanghali, kasabay ng suspensyon ng pasok sa hapon. Ito ay para mabigyan ng pagkakataon ang mga empleyado na makabiyahe papunta sa mga probinsya nila ngayong long weekend. Sa kabila nito, ang mga naghahatid ng basic at health services, disaster preparedness and response at vital services ay mananatiling nasa karaniwang working arrangement at naghahatid ng kinakailangang serbisyo. Maaari namang magdesisyon ng private companies kung papayagan nila ang work from home o suspension ng operasyon.
Paalala po dahil bawal mangampanya mga kandidato para sa 2025 midterm elections ngayong long weekend. Yan ang paalala ng Commission on Elections o COMELEC. Sinabi ni COMELEC Chairperson George Garcia, alinsunod sa Resolution No. 10999, lahat ng uri ng election campaigning o partisan political activities ay ipinagbabawal sa April 17 at 18. Anya, sino mang lalabag ay maaaring maharap sa multa, pagkakakulong o diskwalifikasyon sa paghawak ng public office sa ilalim ng Sections 263 at 264 ng Omnibus Election Code. Nagsimula noong February 11 ang opisyal na campaign period para sa national candidates, habang ang sa local candidates naman ay noong March 28. Matatapos ang parehong campaign period sa May 10 bago ang mismong halalan sa May 12.
Inanunsyo ni DPWH Secretary Manuel Bonoan na inurong ang schedule ng EDSA rehabilitation sa taong 2026 upang bigyang daan ang mga proyektong may kaugnayan sa 2026 ASEAN Summit na gaganapin sa Pilipinas. Kaugnay nito ay sasagawa sa May 15 ang pagsasaayos ng kalsada mula Guadalupe Bridge hanggang sa Pasay na magsisilbing taawiran ng mga bisitang dadalo sa summit. Ayon kay Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin ng Office of the President, 10.5 billion pesos ang hinihingi nilang pondo para sa paghahanda sa ASEAN Summit 2026. Katuwang sa proyektong ito ang Department of Transportation at Metropolitan Manila Development Authority. Inaasahang sisimula ng major rehabilitation sa pagtatapos ng 2026 o sa urang bahagi ng 2027.
Dumating na po sa Pilipinas ang Navy Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System o Nemesis ng Estados Unidos. Ito po ang kinumpirma mismo ni Balikatan spokesperson Brigadier General Michael Logico sa isang press conference. Subalit, hindi niya muna binanggit kung nasaan ang eksaktong lokasyon ng US Nemesis sa bansa. Gayunman ay tiniyak ni Logico na gagamitin ang military asset na ito sa balikatan exercises.
Nemesis, I will confirm that it's already in country. I will not say where, but it is going to participate. It's going to be part of the exercises.
Dati nang sinabi ni US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth na ang deployment ng Nemesis sa bansa ay bahagi ng kasunduan ng Estados Unidos at Pilipinas na palakasin ang deterrence sa Indo-Pacific. Samantala, sinabi ni Logico na sisimulan na ang taunang balikatan exercises sa April 21. Nasa 14,000 sundalo ang lalahok sa naturang military drills. 5,000 mula sa Pilipinas at 9,000 ang galing sa Estados Unidos, habang 200 sundalo naman ang mula sa Australian Defense Force. Magiging observer naman sa taunang military drills ang ilang mga bansa. Inaasahan na rin ni Logico na maglalabas ng negatibong reaksyon ng China, lalo na at isasagawa ang balikatan exercises sa mga lugar na malapit sa West Philippine Sea at maging sa Northern Luzon. Paliwanag na opisyal, may karapatan ang isang bansa na palakasin ang depensa nito.
I've always been asked that question, whether China has any adverse reaction. And of course, I will always say the same thing. When we plan out our exercises, we are agnostic to whatever reactions other countries may have with the exercise. But as I've always said, in all the previous exercises, every country, big or small, has the absolute and inalienable right to defend itself. That means that we also have a right to train for that defense, and with the partners, our treaty allies. So what we are just doing is in consonance with our mutual defense treaty.
May 55 to 80% chance na ang tatlong submersible drones na nakuha sa karagatan ng Pilipinas ay dineploy ng China. Ayon kay Navy spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea o WPS Rear Admiral Roy Vincent Trinidad, karamihan sa mga internal components ng mga drone ay gawa sa China. Bukod rito, ang last contact ng isang SIM card ng underwater drone ay galing sa mainland China. Lumabas rin sa inisyal na resulta ng isinagawang forensics sa drones na kumuha ito ng mga impormasyon sa karagatan, kagaya ng salinity at lalim ng dagat, mga bagay na may scientific at commercial use. Hindi rin naman isinasantabi ni Trinidad ang posibilidad na may military implications din na naisagawa mga submersible drones sa Pilipinas. Samantala, itinaboy ng Philippine Coast Guard o PCG ang namataang Chinese research vessel na Zhongshan Da sa karagatang sakop ng Batanes kaninang umaga. Ayon kay PCG spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, naglabas ng radio challenge ang mga crew ng PCG Islander para ipaalala sa mga tauhan ng Chinese ship na wala silang karapatan na magsagawa ng marine scientific research sa loob ng exclusive economic zone ng bansa. Labagaan nila ito sa United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea o UNCLOS. Gayunman, hindi pinansin at nanatiling walang tugon ang barko sa radio challenge ng PCG.
Tumaas po ng 2.7% ang year-on-year cash remittances ng mga overseas Filipino workers or OFWs itong buwan ng Pebrero. Sa datos na inilabas ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas o BSP na itala sa $2.646 billion ang ipinadalang pera ng mga OFW sa kanilang mga pamilya noong February 2024 habang pumalo naman sa $2.716 billion ang pumasok na salapi ng mga OFWs ngayong Pebrero. Mas mababa ito kaysa sa $2.918 billion na cash remittances ng mga OFWs nitong Enero. Subali tumakyat naman ng 2.8% ang year-to-date remittances ng mga OFWs mula sa $5.481 billion noong taong 2024 ay sumampa ang cash transfers ng mga OFW sa $5.633 billion ngayong taon. Ang paglagoan nila ng cash remittances ay nanggaling sa mga ambaga ng mga OFWs na nagtatrabaho sa Estados Unidos, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, Japan, United Kingdom at United Arab Emirates.
Susunod, mga Taiwanese citizens dineport papuntang China.
US President Donald Trump umalma sa pagbisita ni Xi Jinping sa Vietnam.
At Trump binawasan ang pondo ng Harvard. Yan po at iba pang mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Naging madilim din naman ako dati. Pero ikaw ang nagbalik ng liwanag sa buhay ko.
Lumambot na talaga ang puso nitong si Julian.
Nakikiusap ako. Huwag kang mai-inlove sa iba, please.
Ano bang sinasabi mo?
Pero hindi susuko si Arnold.
Akong pipiliin ni Naomi. Wala nang iba.
A Date with the Future. Weeknights 8:30 p.m. Dito lang sa Net 25.
Let's get together sa Net 25. Sa Net 25.
25 tanong mula Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. Tanong ng ordinaryong Pilipino, hindi ng mga eksperto. Isa-isang sasagutin ng mga tatakbo sa Senado, punto por punto. Isang kandidato, 25 tanong ng bayan. A senatorial point of view. Dito sa Net 25.
Ilang mga Taiwanese na sangkot umano sa telecom fraud ang ipinadeport ng Cambodia sa China noong April 14.
有关本案确切涉案国人的人数资讯，目前住处持续和检方交涉中，政府也将透过两岸机制来了解。
Ayon sa Ministry of Foreign Affairs ng Taiwan, tinatansyang nasa 180 na mga Taiwanese ang naaresto kamakailan at halos 190 naman ang ipinadeport sa China nitong Linggo at Lunes sa hiling ng gobyerno ng China. Ayon sa Taiwan, hindi binigay ng Cambodia ang listahan ng mga deportado o kung ilan sa kanila ang Taiwanese. Dahil rito, nagpahayag ang Taiwan ng matinding pag-aalala at protesta. Naganap ang deportasyon ilang araw bago ang pagbisita ni Chinese President Xi Jinping sa Cambodia bilang bahagi ng Southeast Asia Tour. Kilalang kaalyado ng China ang Cambodia at hindi kinikilala ang Taiwan bilang isang hiwalay na bansa. Dati na ring nagreklamo ang Taiwan sa ibang bansa tulad ng Kenya at Spain sa pagpapadeport ng mga Taiwanese fraud suspects patungo sa China.
同时，外交部要再次呼吁国人，切勿心存侥幸，赴海外从事包括电信诈骗在内的不法行为，以免触犯当地法律，不仅断送个人前途，也损害国家形象。
Inakusahan ng Chinese police ang United States National Security Agency o NSA ng paglunsad ng advanced cyberattack sa Asian Winter Games noong buwan ng Pebrero. Tinarget umano ng NSA ang mga mahahalagang industriya ng China. Isinama rin ng pulisya sina Catherine A. Wilson, Robert J. Snelling at Stephen W. Johnson sa isang wanted list at sinabing ang tatlong NSA agents na nabanggit ay sangkot umano sa paulit-ulit na cyber attacks sa information infrastructure ng China, maging sa Huawei at iba pang Chinese businesses. Kasangkot din umano ang University of California at Virginia Tech sa mga pag-atake, subalit hindi ipinaliwanag ng mga pulis kung ano ang ginawa ng mga naturang universidad sa Asian Winter Games. Hindi naman nagbigay ng anumang pahayag ang Embahada ng Estados Unidos sa China patungkol sa patutsadang cyber attack ng Beijing.
Natapos na ang two-day trip ni Chinese President Xi Jinping sa Vietnam para sa bilateral talks. Pero para kay US President Donald Trump, ito umano ay meeting para maghanap ng paraan upang siya ay maisahan. Nagbigay pugay si President Xi sa monumento ng yumaong revolutionary leader na si Ho Chi Minh sa kanyang huling araw sa Vietnam. Nagsagawa ang Chinese leader ng Southeast Asian Tour sa mga bansang Malaysia at Cambodia upang ibida ang Beijing bilang alternative partner sa US dahil umalma rin ang mga leaders nito sa bagong taripang ipinataw sa kanilang mga bansa. Iba naman ang naging tingin ng Estados Unidos sa tour na ito ni President Xi. Sa pahayag ni Trump sa White House, ang meeting umano ng dalawang leader ay para atakihin ang Estados Unidos.
Now, let me just tell you this. I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. The meeting, like trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America.
Nitong Lunes, pumirma ang China-Vietnam sa 45 cooperation agreements sa supply chains, AI, joint maritime patrols at railway development projects.
Permanenteng kapayapaan, yan ang sinabi ni Russian President Vladimir Putin kay United States Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Sa isang pagpupulong na tumagal ng higit sa 4 na oras, binigyan diin ni Witkoff na bukas sa Moscow na makipagnegosasyon sa Kyiv at malinaw niya na permanenteng kapayapaan ang hangad ni Putin. Sinabi naman ng Kremlin na natalakay din sa pagpupulong ang aspeto ng isang Ukrainian settlement, subalit hindi ito naglabas ng iba pang detalye ng nasabing high-level talks. Mahalaga ang pagbisita ni Witkoff sa Russia dahil inaayos umano nito ang petsa kung kailan formal na mag-uusap sina Putin at US President Donald Trump ukol sa Ukraine. Noong Biyernes ay nagpahayag ng pagkainip si Trump dahil sa desisyon ng Russia. Hinikayat dito ang Moscow na itigil na ang digmaan dahil napakaraming tao anya ang namamatay. Libo-libo sa isang linggo sa isang kakilakilabot at walang katuturang digmaan.
Namatay ang mahigit 34 katao, kabilang ang 2 bata at 117 naman ang nasugatan mula sa nangyaring Russian missile strike sa lungsod ng Sumy sa Ukraine. 2 ballistic missiles ang bumagsak sa gitna ng lungsod at nag-iwan ng mga bangkay na nakakalat sa paligid. Inilarawan ito ni United States President Donald Trump na isang kakilakilabot na bagay. Inaakusahan naman ni German Chancellor in waiting Friedrich Merz na ito ay pagkumit ng isang war crime. Kinundina ng iba't ibang world leaders na ito ay barbaric, alarming at pagwawalang bahala sa buhay ng tao at international law. Inimbitahan ng Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky si Trump sa kanilang bansa upang makita mismo ang pagkawasak nito dulot ng Russian invasion.
I have a reaction to Russia's Palm Sunday attack.
I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake, but I think it's a horrible thing. I think the whole war is a horrible thing. I think the war is, for that war to have started, is an abuse of power. This country would have never allowed that war to have started if I were president.
You were told they made a mistake? Do you mean it was unintentional?
They made a mistake. I believe it was. Look, you're going to ask them. This is Biden's war. This is not my war.
Samantala, iniulat ng Ukrainian Air Force ang pagkamatay ng kanilang F-16 pilot na si Pavlo Ivanov sa nangyaring combat mission noong April 12. Pinaniniwalaan ang kanyang sinakyang aircraft ay tinamaan ng isang Russian missile. Sinimula ng pag-imbestiga sa pangyayaring ito matapos matanggap ni Zelensky ang military reports. Ginawaran si Ivanov ng titulong Hero of Ukraine para sa kanyang katapangan at dedikasyon sa kanyang pagseserbisyo.
Sa New York, sa Estados Unidos, 6 ang kumpirmadong patay matapos ang isang plane crash. Narito po ang report ni Angeli Guzman.
Kinumpirma ng U.S. National Transportation Safety Board o NTSB na 6 na katao ang hinango mula sa lugar kung saan isang maliit na eroplano ang bumagsak noong Linggo. Ayon kay Todd Inman ng NTSB, wala ni isa ang nadala pa sa ospital.
So the question was again about the number of people or fatalities. I can tell you that we have verified there were 6 people on board. I can say that all 6 were removed from the scene. We have no one hospitalized at this time. Any other questions regarding that, I would, again, local authorities and the county coroner.
Ayon sa Federal Aviation Administration at sa kapulisan, isang eroplano ang nag-crash 50 milya o 80 kilometro katimugan ng Albany, ang kabisera ng New York.
On April 12th, at approximately 12:06 Eastern Daylight Time, a Mitsubishi MU-2B40 with tail number November 635 Tango Alpha crashed 10 miles from the Columbia County Airport. This occurred near State Route 23 and Two Town Road. The flight was being operated as a Part 91 flight. The aircraft had departed Westchester County Airport, airport code HPN, when a crash occurred in what we would call a flat agricultural field.
Dagdag ni Inman, na-recover nito ang video ng pagbagsak ng eroplano na nagpapakitang intact ang eroplano at bumaksak ng mabilis.
The scene is approximately 100 yards in length, with the aircraft being compressed, buckled, and embedded into the terrain. Now we have recovered and obtained at this point a video of the actual crash in the final seconds. The video, as we've seen just in the last hour, we were able to retain a higher quality version, appears to show that the aircraft was intact and crashed at a high rate of descent into the ground.
Idinitalye ni NTSB investigator in charge ang huling contact sa piloto ng bumagsak na eroplano.
During the approach at Columbia County Airport, the pilot reported a missed approach. He requested vectors for another approach, and as he is being vectored, the radar indicated a low altitude alert. The ATC controller attempted to relay this low altitude alert to the pilot and also tried to contact him 3 additional times. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful. There was no response from the pilot and there was no distress call.
Ayon pa kay Inman, magkakapamilya ang mga pasahero ng eroplano na papunta sana sa isang selebrasyon kasama ang ibang kamag-anak sa lugar.
We have talked to some of the family members. This was a family along with some partners of some of the family members that were on board. They had relatives that were in the area, so they were attempting to land at the Columbia Airport. They were coming in for a holiday celebration with family.
NJ de Guzman para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Arestado ang isang lalaki matapos umanong sunugin ang mansyon ni Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro habang ito'y natutulog kasama ang kanyang pamilya.
Good afternoon. Last night at approximately 2 o'clock in the morning, while my family and I were asleep upstairs here at the governor's residence, one of the state troopers assigned to our detail banged on our door, woke us up and told us we had an emergency and needed to leave immediately. Together, we secured all of our children, our 2 dogs, our family that was staying with us, and the troopers safely evacuated us from the governor's residence. Last night, we experienced an attack not just on our family, but on the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania here at the governor's residence. I want to thank the Pennsylvania State Police for safely evacuating our family, for their bravery last evening, and for their careful leadership of this investigation.
Inilantad ng pulisya ang 38 anyos na sospek na pinangalanang si Cody Balmer na umakyat umano sa 7-foot iron security fence sa kalagitnaan ng gabi at nagpasimula ng sunog sa loob ng mansyon gamit ang isang homemade incendiary device. Naka-evacuate kaagad sina Governor Shapiro kasama ang kanyang asawa at anak, maging ang isang pangpamilyang kasama nila sa mansyon matapos magising sa mga katok ng mga pulis. Nagpahayag naman ng suporta ang iba't ibang mga mambabatas kay Shapiro, kabilang na si US Vice President J.D. Vance na kinundena ang nasabing pag-atake sa gobernador. Ayon sa kasalukuyang investigasyon ng pulis, posibleng planado ang ginawang pag-atake kay Shapiro. Kasalukuyang humaharap sa mga kasong attempted murder, terrorism, aggravated arson at aggravated assault ang suspect.
We have, as the Colonel indicated, Cody Balmer is in custody. We are preparing a criminal complaint to charge him. This is not a record yet, but the charges will include attempted murder, terrorism, aggravated arson, and aggravated assault against an enumerated person. These are all very serious charges. As with any charges, the defendant is presumed innocent. We will file those charges within the next several hours, and we will include a probable cause affidavit which will detail the basis for this arrest.
Naging usapin ang polisiya ng Amerika sa imigrasyon matapos bisitahin ni El Salvador President Nayib Bukele si US President Donald Trump nitong linggo. Ito'y matapos iligal na i-deport ang isang El Salvadoran na si Kilmar Abrego Garcia sa kabila ng kanyang protected legal status. Tinagurian ng Trump administration mismo na isang administrative error ang pag-deport sa kanya. Sa kanyang pagbisita sa White House, sinabi ni El Salvador President na bagamat may kapangyarihan itong pakawalan si Garcia, hindi anya nila gustong magpakawalan ng teroristang nakakulong sa kanilang bansa.
The question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you could release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Ayon sa mga opisyal ng US, miyembro umano si Garcia ng MS-13 gang na kinikilalang foreign terrorist organization ng Amerika. Sinabi naman ng administrasyon ni Trump na wala silang otoridad na himuki ng El Salvador na ibalik si Garcia sa kabila ng court order ng US Supreme Court ruling na dapat itong ibalik sa Amerika. Halos kapareho ng pahayag ni Bukele ang mga komento ni Trump sa issue. Ayon sa kanya, walang problema ang nangyaring deportation kung ito'y homegrown na kriminal. Dagdag ni Trump, kasalukuyang ipinasusuri niya ang legalidad ng pag-deport sa bansa ng mga kriminal upang doon nila pagsilbihan ang kanilang sentensya.
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, Yeah, that includes them. What, do you think there's a special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too. And I'm all for it. Because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security.
Ayon sa mga eksperto, ang mga banta ni Trump sa kanyang mass deportations ay lalong titindi matapos ang pag-uusap nila ni Bukele. Unti-unti na umanong tinutulungan ng El Salvador si Trump na lumihis sa mga desisyon ng US courts para sa kanyang immigration policies. Naninindigan si Trump na ang kanilang polisiya ay magpapabawas ng krimen sa Amerika sa kabila ng record lows ng violent crime sa bansa. Sa kabila nito, itinuturing ni Bukele na ito'y kinubkob ng mga kriminal at dapat anyang gayahin ng Amerika ang solusyon ng El Salvador kung saan ito'y may pinakamatataas na incarceration rate sa buong mundo.
Tinanggal na po ng federal funding ang halagang $2.3 billion ng U.S. Education Department ang Harvard University. Ito ay sa kabila ng pro-Palestine na mga kilos protestang isinagawa ng Ivy League schools, kabilang na ang Harvard University. Ayon sa Education Department, anti-Semitic at labag umano ito sa obligasyong karapatang pantao. Dahil dito, nais ang departamentong magkaroon ng mas mahigpit na monitoring sa mga foreign students at ang merit-only admissions sa university. Umalma naman si Harvard University President Alan Garber. Sa isang public letter, sinabi ni Garber na ang demandang Education Department ay hakayaan ang federal government na kontrolin ang harvest community at binabantaan ang universidad. Dagdag pa niya, walang gobyerno ang dapat magdikta kung ano ang itinuturo, sino ang papapasukin at kung sino ang kanilang iha-hire. Nagsimula ang issue ng anti-Semitism sa nasabing universidad dahil sa pro-Palestine student protests bago pa man pumasok ang ikalawang termino ni US President Donald Trump. Kasalukuyan namang on process ang deportation ng mga detained na estudyanteng nakilahok sa mga nasabing kilos protesta laban sa Israel. Umabot na po sa daan-daang estudyante ang nag-cancel ng visa. Enero nang pumayag ang Harvard na mas paigtingin ang proteksyon ng mga Jewish students alinsunod sa mga kaso at aligasyon ng anti-Semitism.
Susunod, magnitude 5.2 na lindol niyanig ang California.
Sony tinaasan ang presyo ng PlayStation 5 sa Europa at sa Australia.
At Nobel Prize winner Mario Vargas Llosa na mayapa na. Detalye ng mga balitang yan at iba pang mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka nang mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Nagbabalik ang mata ng Agila International at sa pagpapatuloy po ng ating mga balita ngayong gabi. Ginulat ng magnitude 5.2 na lindol ang mga residente sa Southern California, partikular na sa San Diego, nang nauga at nagsipaglaglagan ang kanilang mga gamit sa kanilang mga tirahan dahil sa lindol. Higit sa mga tao ay nagkagulo rin pati mga elepante sa San Diego Zoo Safari Park dahil sa pagyanig ng lupa. Ang mga elepante kasi ay may kakayahang makaramdam ng pagyanig mula sa kanilang mga paa. Samantala, inilikas papalabas ng kanilang mga eskwelahan ang mga estudyante bilang pagsisiguro sa kaligtasan ng mga ito. Makalipas po ng ilang sandali ay huminto rin ang lindol at pagsibalikan ang lahat sa kanilang mga pang-araw-araw na gawain. Ayon sa San Diego County Sheriff's Department, walang napaulat na nasaktan sa insidente. Iniulat naman ni seismologist Lucy Jones na tumama ang lindol sa lalim na 8.3 miles malapit sa Elsinore Fault Zone, isang bahagi ng San Andreas Fault System.
Sa Iraq naman, higit sa 1,800 katao ang tinamaan ng respiratory problems dahil sa umiiral na sandstorm sa bansa. Ayon sa mga health officials, nakapagtala ang mga ospital sa Muthanna Province nang hindi bababa sa 700 kaso ng suffocation, higit sa 250 naman ang mga na-ospital sa Najaf Province, habang higit sa 530 pasyente naman sa Dikar at Basra ang nakararanas ng hirap sa paghinga. Pansamantala na ring sinuspinde ang lahat ng mga paliparan at mga kalsada sa bansa dahil sa zero visibility. Ngayong taon, ito na ang pinakamalaking sandstorm na tumama sa Iraq.
Patay ang isang lalaki habang sugatan ng 2 iba pa matapos mabagsakan ang mga ito ng pader sa India. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, pinaniniwala ang nagmula sa ginagawang 6 na palapag na gusali ang bumagsak na pader. Sa salaysay ng mga nakasaksi, tumama ang malakas na sandstorm sa lugar kung kaya gumuho at bumagsak ang pader. Naaktuhan lamang na may 3 mga individual na napadaan sa lugar. Kaagad namang nadala sa ospital ang 2, nakaligtas na nagtamo ng pinsala sa katawan. Ayon sa India Meteorological Department, dahil sa sandstorm, nag-issue sila ng orange alert sa Delhi at pinapayuhan ang lahat ng mga residenteng manatili sa loob ng kanilang mga bahay para na rin sa kanilang kaligtasan.
Isang malakas na pagsabog naman ang yumanig sa 12-dosenang bahay sa Austin, Texas. Nasugatan ng 6 katao at 2 sa kanila ay kritikal ang kondisyon. 2 sa rumespondeng bombero rin ang nasugatan mula sa pagsabog. Matapos iligtas at gamutin ang mga nasaktan ay agad-agad silang isinugod sa ospital. Patuloy namang iniimbestigahan ng otoridad ang sanhi ng insidente.
Nagdulot ng malawakang pagkasira sa mga beach sa United Arab Emirates ang oil spill na nagpapahirap sa mga turista at nagbibigay ng malubhang pag-aalala sa mga opisyal doon. Noong nakaraang linggo po kasi nag-umpisa ang paglilinis sa mga beach sa Forja, subalit hanggang ngayon patuloy ang pagdating ng mga bagong spills ng krudo na siyang nagpapahirap sa paglilinis at nakababahala na para sa kalusugan ng mga bisita. Ang mga turista ay nagrereklamo na matinding amoy ng krudo na nagdudulot umano ng pagsusuka, sakit sa ulo at pagkahilo. Marami sa kanila ang nag-relocate sa ibang lugar dahil sa kawalan ng aksyon mula sa mga hotel. Ang mga opisyal ay nagbabala ng mga matitinding parusa para sa mga responsable sa pagtapon ng krudo, kasama na ang mga malalaking multa at mga legal na kaso. Ang mga turista ay pinapayuhang maging maingat at mag-report ng anumang kaso ng polusyon sa mga otoridad. Ang mga otoridad ay nagpapatuloy ng paglilinis at pag-iimbestiga sa mga insidente ng pagtapon ng krudo upang maibalik ang kalinisan at kaligayahan sa beach sa UAE. Pinaniniwala ang nagmula ang oil spill sa isang local port na madalas tumanggap ng vessels para sa fuel at motor oils. Pinag-aaralan na rin ng mga eksperto ang long-term implications ng oil spill sa marine ecosystem. Tinaasan po ng South Korea ang kanilang support package sa industriya ng semiconductors at microchips bunsod ng sitwasyong pang-ekonomiya, dulot pa rin ng US tariffs. Ang top memory chip makers ng South Korea katulad ng Samsung Electronics at SK Hynix ay kabilang sa pang-apat na pinakamalaking ekonomiya sa Asia. Inanunsyo ng South Korean Trade Ministry ang karagdagang suporta sa semiconductor industry ng 33 trillion won mula sa inanunsyong 26 trillion won sa nakaraang taon. Aarangkada din ang pagpapataas ng financial assistance program sa kanilang chips industry ng 20 trillion won mula sa naunang 17 trillion won. Ang karagdagang support package ay para patuloy na makasabay ang domestic companies ng bansa sa pandaigdigang merkado. Ang mahakbang na ito ng South Korea ay lunsunod po sa lumalalang uncertainty sa polisiya ng Estados Unidos at lumalaking kompetisyon sa China. Ipinahayag naman ni Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok na patuloy ang pakikipag-usap ng South Korea sa US tungkol sa mga tariff investigation nito sa semiconductor at biopharmaceutical imports upang maibsan ang anumang magiging bunga nito sa mga kumpanya.
Maraming viral na mga video ang nagpapakita ng mga nagbebenta na nagsasabing galing umano sa parehong pabrika ng mga sikat na brands kagaya ng Lululemon at Louis Vuitton ang kanilang paninda ngunit mas mura. Sa isang video na may halos 10 million views, ipinagmamalaki ng isang seller na kaya niyang ibenta ang yoga pants mula umano sa parehong pabrika na gumagawa para sa Lululemon sa halagang $5 hanggang $6 lamang kumpara sa $100 price tag sa US. May isa lamang nagsasabing kaya nilang ibenta ang Louis Vuitton style bags sa halagang $50 ngunit parehong itinanggi ng Lululemon at Louis Vuitton ang mga ito. Ayon sa mga eksperto, karamihan sa mga videos ay mula sa mga pabrika ng peke o dupe na produkto na sinasamantala ang kalituhan dulot ng bagong taripa para pataasin ang benta. May ilang Amerikanong TikTok users na natuwa sa mga video dahil umano sa pagbubunyag ng mga ito sa luxury industry at sa pag-iwas sa taripa. Ngunit ayon sa mga eksperto, ito ay bahagi ng mas malaking labanan sa pagitan ng Estados Unidos at China kaugnay ng intellectual property. Ginagamit ng mga pabrika sa China ang social media katulad na lamang ng TikTok bilang strategic tool para impluwensyahan ang Western markets. Naging emosyonal ang pagbalik ng Blue Original female crew na kinabilangan ni pop star Katy Perry matapos ang matagumpay na splashdown nito mula sa space. Got it? Kasama ng pop star sa flight na ito ang ilang mga tanyag na personalidad katulad ni na Emmy winner Gayle King, indie film producer Carrie-Ann Flynn at award-winning journalist Lauren Sanchez. Nakita sa live broadcast ang ilang sandali na naramdaman nilang weightlessness o zero gravity habang sila ay namangha sa view ng Earth mula sa outer space. Habang sila naman ay pabalik sa Earth ay inawitan ni Katy Perry ang kanyang mga crewmates ng kanta ni Louis Armstrong na What a Wonderful World. Matapos ang landing ay bumaba si Katy Perry hawak ang isang bulaklak na daisy na pinagmula ng pangalan ng kanyang anak.
I feel super connected to love. So connected to love. I think this experience has shown me you never know how much love is inside of you, like how much love you have to give and how loved you are until the day you launch.
Sa news conference, pagkatapos ng kanilang paglalakbay ay inilarawan naman ni Lauren Sanchez ang kanyang karanasan.
Yeah, definitely still processing, right? We all talked about that. Profound is like the one word I would use. I was up there and you see Earth and then, you know, it's completely black. But what we got was the moon. We got to see the moon, and it was in complete and utter darkness. And then you look back at Earth, and it's like this beautiful jewel. It was quiet. It felt like it was breathing. It was so alive. And that's kind of what I felt, just this aliveness of Earth.
I have to say, what an honor.
Tumagal ng humigit kumulang 11 minuto ang kanilang flight kung saan sila ay lumampas sa Kármán Line na kinikilalang boundary ng atmosphere ng Earth at ng outer space. Ang Blue Origin ay isang aerospace company na pagmamay-ari ni Amazon founder Jeff Bezos.
Mainit na pong pinaghahandaan ang 2025 postseason tip-off na Sophie Play-in Tournament para sa paglaban ng 7th and 8th seed ng Eastern and Western Conference ng NBA. Carl, kausapin po para sa play-by-play.
Stephen Curry. Just must-see TV.
The deep three.
Oh, my.
Magpapasiklaban ang dalawang koponan para sa isang playoff spot sa paunguna ng Golden State Warriors at Memphis Grizzlies sa Western Play-in matchup. Magiting na ipaglalaban ni playoff Jimmy Butler ang kanyang pagdating sa Golden State nang ito ay ang kanyang pangatlong consecutive year na tinulungan o humadlang sa kanyang team patungo sa play-in. Sa kanyang pagdating, naging valuable member siya sa chemistry ng Warriors na nagkamit ng 23 wins, 8 losses. Ngunit ang kanyang kondisyon ay under monitoring matapos magtamo ng injury sa kanyang kaliwang hita sa laban ng Clippers. Isa rin na inaabangang matchups ay ang defensive at offensive players ng parehas na koponan na maaaring magdeklara ng kanilang league standing. Mula sa pinagbobotohan na Defensive Player of the Year na pasisiklaban ni na Draymond Green ng Warriors at Jaren Jackson Jr. ng Memphis hanggang sa dominant point guards na sina Ja Morant at Stephen Curry. Magiging matindi ang kanilang laban para sa number 7 seed nang dahil sa iba't ibang sitwasyon na pinagdadaanan ng parehas na koponan. Ang mananalo sa labang ito ay susunod na haharapin ang Houston Rockets o ang Oklahoma City Thunders. Carl kausapin para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
I'm just ready. I'm on one.
Tampok ang mga sikat na artista bilang mga presenters para sa prestigious ceremony na gaganapin sa May 5, alas 8 ng gabi, KST at ipapalabas ng live sa JTBC. Muling magbabalik sa entablado ang mga grand prize winners noong nakaraang taon na si Ryu Seong-ryong ng moving at director Kim Sung-soo ng 12-12 The Day bilang presenters. Sasamahan sila ng iba pang nanalo sa 60th Baeksang na magpipresenta in pairs katulad ni Lee Jung-ha at Yuna, An Jae-hong at Yom Hye-ran at Nam Kung-min kasama si Lee Ha-ni. Kasama rin ang singer-actress na si Bibi na nanalo bilang Best New Actress sa film category noong nakaraang taon. Ay magpipresenta naman ng Best New Actor at Actress Awards kasama si Ong Seong-woo. Presenter din sina Kang Jae-jin para sa theater category, Kim Shin-rock at Director Cho Hyun-chol para naman sa Gucci Impact Award. Magbabalik rin ang mga kilalang tambalang pang TV katulad ni na Seo In-guk at Jong Eun-ji ng Reply 1997 at Go Kyung-pyo at Seo Hyun ng Private Lives na muling magsasama sa entablado. Itatampok rin sa seremonya ang mga inaabangang pelikula katulad ng Omniscient Reader ni na An Hyo-seop at Nana na ipalalabas ngayong July at Pavane na pinagbibidahan ni na Byun Yo-han at Go Ah-sung. Ang awards night ay pangungunahan ni na Park Bo-gum, Suzy at Shin Dong-yup bilang mga hosts.
Not guilty ang ipinli ni dating Japanese pop star Kenshin Kamimura sa korte. Nakaharap sa kasong indecent assault si Kamimura matapos siyang akusahan ng isang babae ng pananakit sa isang restaurant sa Hong Kong nitong Marso lamang. Dating miyembro si Kamimura ng boy band na One and Only, subalit tinanggal siya sa grupo ng kanyang management agency dahil may nilabag daw ito. Pinagbigyan naman ng korte ang hiling ito nga makapag-bail at nakaschedule ang susunod na hearing ng singer sa July 31. Hindi po nagbigay ng komento ang mga abogado ng pop star, subalit sakaling mapatunayan na nagkasala nga si Kamimura ay posible itong makulong ng hanggang 10 taon.
Pumanaw na po sa edad na 89 ang 2010 Nobel Prize winner for Literature na si Mario Vargas Llosa. Inanunsyo ng kanyang mga anak sa social media na namayapa ang Peruvian writer nitong linggo sa Lima, Peru. Si Vargas Llosa ay isang tanyag na personalidad sa Latin American literature at merong mahigit na 50 literary works na nailathala. Karamihan sa kanyang mga gawa ay patungkol sa mga karahasan at iba pang suliraning panlipunan na nararanasan ng mga tao, partikular na sa Latin America. Noong 1990, siya ay tumakbo sa pagkapangulo ng Peru, ngunit nabigong manalo. Nagdeklara naman kahapon ang Peruvian government ng National Day of Mourning kasunod ng pagpanaw ng isa sa pinakamaimpluwensyang manunulat sa Latin America. Pusa sa mga bodega ng New York City ay tinuturing ng mga paboritong alaga ng mga residente doon. Madalas silang makikita na nagpapahinga sa mga bintana ng tindahan o kaya gumagala sa mga istante ng kagigiliwan o nakinagigiliwan ng mga mamimili. Kahit bawal sa batas, nananatiling mahalaga at minamahal ang mga bodega cat sa buhay ng maraming New Yorker. Kamakailan muling pinag-usapan ang issue matapos lumaganap ang isang online na petisyon na humihiling na huwag pagmultahin ang mga bodega na may pusa kung saan umabot na ito sa mahigit 10,000 signatures. Ayon sa New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets, layo nilang tiyakin ang kaligtasan sa pagkain, ngunit binibigyan muna nila ng babala at tulong ang mga tindahan bago magbigay ng fines. Para sa marami, nakatutulong ang mga pusa sa pagpigil ng mga daga at ipis. Bukod pa rito, nagdadala sila ng saya at koneksyon sa komunidad. Tulad ni Mimi na isang bodega cat sa Greenpoint, Brooklyn, matapos siyang mapanood ng milyon-milyong tao sa TikTok. Dahil rito, maraming mga customer ang napapalapit sa mga bodega cat, katulad ng isang cat owner na si Salim Yafai na nagsabing ang pusa niyang si Riley ay sobrang popular. Na minsan may customer ang gustong bumili rito sa halagang $1,000 pero hindi niya ito pinayagan.
Nagkamit naman po ng 2 Guinness World Record para sa most air rings blown underwater ang professional free diver sa US na si Amelia de los Rios. Noong taong 2024 ay nagkamit rin ng record sa US Free Diving Federation si Amelia para sa static apnea, isang training kung saan ang diver ay lulutang sa tubig na hindi humihinga o gumagalaw. Nakatulong ang kanyang pagiging pro free diver upang makuha niya ang Guinness World Records, the most air rings blown underwater in 1 minute and most air rings blown without a time limit. Sa record ay nakagawa siya ng 56 na underwater air rings sa 1 minuto at 81 underwater air rings nang walang time limit. Kabilang ang records ni Amelia sa mahigit 50 Guinness World Records na may kinalaman sa free diving. Noong taong 2020 ay isang free diver ang nanalo naman ng most consecutive bench presses underwater.
Ikinatuwa ni Princess Tengku Faizwa Tengku Razif ang mutual exemption ng Malaysia at China. Nagpasya ang mga gobyerno ng dalawang bansa na i-extend ang visa exemption ng kanilang mga nationals hanggang sa katapusan ng taong 2026. Pinuri ng prinsesa ang nasabing pagpapalawig ng visa exemption dahil lalo pa anyang mapapahusay ang cultural exchanges ng Malaysia at China.
And then now with the new free visa, we can further enhance our cultural exchange, and then have more bilateral trades. We can have multi visits. You know, teachers are very important. To me, teachers are very important. So that's why I try to encourage for teachers to come and have some exchange programs, learn about our culture. China and Malaysia exchange their cultures, and then learn more on the opportunities that we have.
At narito po kami para maghatid ng balita saan mang dako ng mundo. Magandang gabi po. Ako po muli si Ricky Mathay.
Ako si Nina Richie Alago Flores. Ito ang Mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga balitang nangyari rin sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta naman tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa Net 25 World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for Net 25 World News. On tonight's headlines, a 5.2 magnitude earthquake shook eastern San Diego County near the small town of Julian just after 10 a.m. Monday morning. Take a look.
This earthquake was a little longer than the ones I've experienced before. and we felt the whole house start to shake, and we ran into the driveway.
I just think it was way more intense, and it lasted a lot longer, and then the aftershocks were very strong also.
And the news starts now. A 5.2 magnitude earthquake shook eastern San Diego County near the small town of Julian just after 10 a.m. Monday morning. Take a look. The quake's epicenter was about 2.5 miles south of Julian, roughly 17 miles east of Ramona, and about 8 miles underground. Experts say it's likely linked to Elsinore Fault, which is part of the larger San Andreas Fault system. People felt the shaking across a wide area from San Diego County all the way up to Los Angeles, Orange, and Riverside counties, and even down into parts of Mexico like Tijuana and Mexicali. Residents described it as a strong, long jolt.
This earthquake was a little longer than the ones I've experienced before. The last one I seen, I was at work at night and it was a little rolling, and I just looked up and saw the hanging lights swaying. But this one seemed to be a little longer and a little more intense.
We were together walking out of my house, and we felt the whole house start to shake, and we ran into the driveway because the house was shaking so bad we didn't know if it would be safe even in the doorway.
Well, actually, I was in my bed. I was just laying down enjoying my normal day, and then all of a sudden I just started seeing my entire room start to wobble before I even felt it. And then I felt it come up through the bed, and I just started shaking. I watched things fall down off the roof and the walls, and I instantly thought about my business here, thinking, oh no, everything's gonna be all messed up. So I rushed over here, started picking stuff up. It was very intense.
Well, I've lived here my whole entire life, and today we had the most damage that we've ever had. So we had about 20 broken jars. And of gifty items, we carry the Mara line, which is a higher end pottery line, and we lost about 8 or 9 of those. But none of the staff was hurt, and they handled it quite well.
There were a few reports of minor damage, like cracked ceilings and broken bottles, but no serious injuries or major damage so far. Now here's something fascinating. This video from the San Diego Zoo Safari Park captured elephants instinctively forming what's called an alert circle during the quake. As soon as they felt the vibrations, the herd circled their young to protect them. 7-year-old Mikaya, a young female, moved to the center of the circle for safety, while Zuli, a 7-year-old male, stayed closer to the outer edge. 18-year-old Kazi was seen gently touching Zuli with her trunk. According to zoo staff, this behavior is common among elephants in response to perceived threats, their way of ensuring safety for both their young and the entire herd. The herd returned to normal after about 4 minutes, but stayed close together for a while longer. Meanwhile, aftershocks followed the main quake. At least 7 have been recorded so far. The largest measured 3.9 near Julian and 3.5 near Borrego Springs.
Well, I just think it was way more intense, and it lasted a lot longer, and then the aftershocks were very strong also. So compared to ones that I've been in before at different times in my life, I felt like this one was a little bit intense.
The National Weather Service confirmed there's no tsunami threat. Some boulders rolled onto State Route 76 during the shaking, briefly blocking traffic, but crews cleared them quickly. Emergency responders, including CAL FIRE and San Diego Sheriff's Office, say they haven't seen any significant injuries or property damage. Seismologists say that given the quake size and depth, serious structural damage is unlikely, except maybe in poorly built buildings. Still, this event is a good reminder that Southern California is an active seismic zone, and it's important to stay prepared. The United States and the Philippines are set to begin large-scale joint military exercises, deploying approximately 9,000 U.S. troops. The drill, known as Balikatan, come as tensions rise with China over its activities in the South China Sea and near Taiwan. Take a look. This year's Balikatan exercises, running from April 21st to May 9th, will involve 5,000 Filipino troops, 200 from the Australian Defense Force, and observers from Japan. Notably, for the first time, countries like Poland and the Czech Republic will also observe.
What we're looking at here is really an exercise verging into a full battle test, which means we are now treating the exercise as a rehearsal for our defense.
Military officials emphasize the exercises will be more focused, concentrating on maritime and air defense interoperability.
We are looking at more or less 14,000 participants on both sides. We have an increase in the number of participants with the Australian Defense Force, the ADF. I think there are around 200, am I right, Doug? 200 participants from the ADF. We are going to have active observers coming from the JSDF, the Japanese Defense Force. This is also the reason why we do these joint exercises, to make sure that all of these not only work as single service operations, but they also work together as part of a joint force.
The drills will span strategic locations from Palawan to northern Luzon, areas directly facing the South China Sea and Taiwan. The exercises are seen as a demonstration of deepening defense ties between the U.S. and the Philippines, particularly as confrontations with China escalate in the South China Sea. The U.S. has reaffirmed its ironclad commitment to the Philippines under the Mutual Defense Treaty. During a recent visit, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth pledged to deploy advanced capabilities, including the Nemesis anti-ship missile system, already in the Philippines, to help deter what he called Chinese aggression.
Nemesis, I will confirm that it's already in country. I will not say where, but it is going to participate. It's going to be part of the exercises.
Brigadier General Michael Loico said every country, big or small, has the absolute and inalienable right to defend itself and train for that defense, and with our partners, our treaty allies, unquote. The exercises are expected to further heighten tensions in the region, as China has previously criticized similar drills.
On the pretext of honoring bilateral treaties, the United States is meddling in the South China Sea issue, undermining China's territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests, and attempting to threaten and coerce China. This approach will simply not work. It needs to be pointed out that the Philippine side has repeatedly made infringements and provocation against China. Outside countries led by the United States have made continued attempts to destabilize the South China Sea through escalating tensions and providing weapons. It fully exposed their true intention of making troubles in the region. To the Philippine side, relying on foreign support to make waves in the South China Sea will backfire, and eventually pawns will easily be abandoned. We urge the Philippine side to give up unrealistic illusions and come back to the right track of dialogue and negotiation at an early date.
Meanwhile, tensions remain high as hopes for a swift end to the Ukraine war dim. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has stated that reaching a peace deal with the U.S. is proving difficult, and that Russia will no longer rely on Western economic ties. Take a look.
When we speak about eliminating root causes of any conflict, including Ukrainian conflict, this is the only way to resolve the problem and to establish long-lasting peace. Remove root causes.
However, Lavrov clarified that progress has been slow. He referenced President Vladimir Putin's June 2024 demands, which include Ukraine relinquishing its NATO aspirations and withdrawing from all territories Russia claims.
But on territories, I want to make a very important point. Sure. We are not about territories. We are about people who live on these lands, whose ancestors lived there for centuries, who founded cities like EDSA, Catherine the Great, who built factories, who built roads, ports, and these people, by twist of history during the Soviet days, became not part of Russia, but part of Ukraine, because this was considered a consolidating factor to neutralize the ultra-radicals living in the western part of Ukraine when it joined the Soviet Union after the war. The people who live there, they are being deprived of all human rights.
It's important to remember that Russia currently controls a significant portion of Ukraine, including Crimea and parts of 4 other regions, a territorial claim widely rejected by the international community. Lavrov did express a positive view on some recent political statements that he calls common sense, and also points out the assessment by certain political voices that highlighted NATO expansion as the cause for the war.
President Trump was the first and so far, I think, almost the only one among the Western leaders who repeatedly, with conviction, several times stated that it was a huge mistake to pull Ukraine into NATO. And this is one of the root causes which we quoted so many times.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin has cautioned against expecting immediate progress.
There are no clear outlines of a peace agreement yet, but there is a political will to move towards this agreement. And I repeat once again, we highly appreciate the constructive and meaningful contacts that we have had with U.S.
Russia has sharply criticized remarks by Friedrich Merz, the incoming German chancellor, for suggesting that his country could supply Ukraine with advanced long-range Taurus cruise missiles. Merz made the comments during a television interview shortly after a devastating missile attack struck the northeastern Ukrainian city of Sumy. Indonesia dismissed today a report in defense publication Janes that Russia has requested basing military aircraft in Papua, its easternmost province, after the issue caused concern in Australia. The report is incorrect, according to Freddie Biyernes, the spokesperson of Indonesia's Defense Ministry. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation said Australian Defense Minister Richard Marles spoke to his Indonesian counterpart, who said there would be no Russian Air Force planes based in Indonesia. Papua is about 1,200 kilometers north of the Australian city of Darwin, where a U.S. Marine Corps rotational force is based for 6 months of the year. And Australian air bases are being upgraded to host visiting U.S. bombers. Earlier, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said his government has asked Indonesia about the Janes report, as the issue dominated Australia's election campaign today.
We are ascertaining, having a look at those reports, as the Foreign Minister and Defence Minister have said. We have a good relationship with our friends in Indonesia, and we're seeking further clarification. We are seeking further information. We obviously do not want to see Russian influence in our region, very clearly. We have a position, which is we stand with Ukraine. We regard Vladimir Putin as an authoritarian leader who has broken international law, who's attacking the sovereignty of the nation of Ukraine. Thanks very much.
Janes reported that Jakarta has received an official request from Moscow seeking permission for Russian Aerospace Forces, or VKS aircraft, to be based at a facility in Indonesia's easternmost province of Papua. Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov met Indonesia's President Prabowo Subianto in Jakarta on Tuesday, the President's office said in a statement, and Indonesian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Roy Soimerat said the ministry has not heard of this report. Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong said Indonesia is critical for Australian security, and the two countries had struck a defense cooperation agreement last year. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele says he has no plans to return a man mistakenly deported from the United States. Now, this following a meeting at the White House with U.S. President Donald Trump. Bukele suggests that doing so would be like smuggling a terrorist into the country. And Trump says he would like to see his deportations go further. He now wants to send some U.S. citizens who commit violent crimes to Salvadoran prisons. Thomas I. Likeness for more.
This is the prison in El Salvador, where wrongfully deported Kilmar Abrego Garcia is being held. The high-security mega lockup houses gang members, many of them dangerous. Critics say human rights abuses are rampant in the prison. The Trump administration admits it goofed when it ordered Garcia's deportation. Garcia had a permit to work in the U.S., where he has lived since 2011. But neither country plans to do anything to get him back to the U.S. Bukele, for his part, says the matter is out of his hands.
The question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
For now, Garcia remains stranded in that Salvadoran prison. Now, while Trump and Bukele met, the family of Garcia rallied outside of the White House and made this plea.
President Trump, bring Kilmar home now. Bring Kilmar home! And to the President of El Salvador, who is, I think, having lunch with our President today, President Bukele, we call upon you to respect the human rights and the fundamental human dignity of Kilmar. Do everything in your power to keep him safe until he can be safely returned to his loved ones.
Taking Trump's deportees is good business for El Salvador. The Salvadoran government is receiving $6 million to house migrants who are kicked out of the U.S. And Trump says he's approached Bukele about building more prisons to house deportees.
I just asked the president, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden.
Trump has an even more frightening proposal. In his latest push to test constitutional limits, he says he wants to send some violent criminals who are U.S. citizens to Salvadoran prisons.
You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized Americans?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What, do you think there's a special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too. And I'm all for it. Because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in.
Trump says Bukele is open to housing American prisoners. Now, the U.S. government cannot forcibly remove citizens from the country for any reason. But the Trump administration is reportedly looking for ways to get around that. In rare cases, foreign citizens can be stripped of their citizenship and be deported if they commit terrorism or treason, or if they're found to have lied about their background during the naturalization process. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt confirms that the proposal is on the table, saying Trump had simply floated the idea. Unfortunately, some of his musings find their way into practice, and this idea is Trump's most authoritarian proposal yet. Thomas I. Likeness, Net 25 World News.
Trade policy uncertainty continues as President Trump suggests he may grant exemptions to current auto tariffs.
U.S. President Donald Trump added new wrinkles into his trade policy on Monday by suggesting he might grant exemptions on auto-related levies already in place. He said he was considering a modification to the 25% tariffs imposed on foreign auto and auto parts imported from Mexico and Canada. Those tariffs could raise the costs of a car by thousands of dollars.
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies where they're switching to parts that were made in Canada, Mexico, and other places, and they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here. but they need a little bit of time. So I'm talking about things like that.
This comes after the U.S. removed smartphones and other electronics from its tariffs on China over the weekend. Meanwhile, China's President Xi Jinping met with Vietnam's top leader To Lam in Hanoi Monday to discuss establishing stronger ties on trade and supply chains amid disruptions caused by U.S. duties. They also signed dozens of cooperation agreements between the two communist-run nations.
I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. The meeting, like trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America.
The visit, which had been planned for weeks, comes as Beijing faces 145% tariffs from Trump. Vietnam is negotiating a reduction of threatened U.S. tariffs of 46% that would otherwise apply in July after a global pause expires.
Tariffs are now forcing Nissan to cut production of its best-selling U.S. model, the Rogue SUV. Take a look.
Nissan will cut Japanese production of its top-selling US model, the Rogue SUV, over May to July. That's according to a person familiar with the matter. Nissan will become the latest global automaker to alter manufacturing plans in response to new US import tariffs. Donald Trump's decision to slap a 25% levy on cars built overseas has upended the global automotive supply chain. Nissan is Japan's third-largest car maker and is more exposed than some rivals. The US is its top market and accounts for more than a quarter of the vehicles it sold last year. Many of those were made in Japan and Mexico. The source told Reuters that Nissan plans to reduce output of the Rogue by 13,000 vehicles at its plant in southwest Japan during the 3-month period. They added that workers at the plant, which is Nissan's largest, will work fewer hours from May through to July, and production will be halted on some days. On Monday, Trump said he was considering modifying the auto levy because automakers need a little bit of time. Nissan said in a statement it was reviewing its production and supply chain operations to identify solutions, and that it was committed to adapting to market changes.
Mark Zuckerberg faced intense questioning today in a Washington, D.C. courtroom, defending Meta's acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp against antitrust allegations.
Meta Platforms CEO Mark Zuckerberg took the stand in a Washington, D.C. courtroom on Monday. In a trial over government allegations, the social media giant built an illegal monopoly. The high-stakes antitrust case involves Meta's acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp for billions of dollars. The Federal Trade Commission is seeking to force Meta to restructure or sell Instagram and WhatsApp. That poses an existential threat to Meta, which by some estimates earns about half its U.S. advertising revenue from Instagram. While on the stand, Zuckerberg sought to defend against allegations his company bought Instagram and WhatsApp to eliminate competition. The FTC has pointed to emails in which Zuckerberg proposed acquiring Instagram as a way to neutralize a potential Facebook competitor, and expressed worry that encrypted messaging service WhatsApp could grow into a social network. How users spend time on social media and which services they consider interchangeable will be core to the case. Meta will argue that an increase in traffic to Instagram and Facebook during TikTok's brief shutdown in the US in January shows direct competition. The FTC has argued that platforms where users broadcast content to strangers based on shared interests, such as TikTok, are not interchangeable. The trial, which is expected to stretch into July, is part of a crackdown on big tech, started during Trump's first administration. Amazon, Apple, and Alphabet's Google also face antitrust lawsuits by U.S. antitrust enforcers. Several major tech companies have moved to align more with Trump, such as rolling back diversity initiatives and having executives engage directly with the White House. But that has not resulted in a pullback on the antitrust cases.
And the news continues here on Net 25. We'll be right back. Pop star Katy Perry and a crew of 5 other women have safely returned to Earth after a successful space flight on a Blue Origin rocket. This mission marks a significant milestone, being the first all-female space flight in more than 60 years. Take a look.
I hope they can see the unity that we modeled and replicate that and understand that we weren't just taking up space, we were making space for the future. And for me, like Gail said, this wasn't a ride, wasn't a destination. It was a journey, and it was a supernatural one.
Our instructor, Sarah, my new best friend, said, "You are my most success story because I've never trained anyone that was afraid to fly or was a nervous flyer. So I consider you a big success." And I'm so proud of us. I really am proud of me because I never in a gazillion years thought I could do this.
And I didn't pick one of my songs because, again, it's not about me. It's about the collective, and it's about the view that we get to see, that we're humbled by.
Yeah, definitely still processing, right? We all talked about that. Profound is like the one word I would use. I was up there, and you see Earth, and then, you know, it's completely black. But what we got was the moon. We got to see the moon, and it was in complete and utter darkness. So alive. And that's kind of what I felt, just this aliveness of Earth.
We haven't seen it. I want to see it myself.
1, 2, 3, take us space! Woo! Right by.
The Earth's climate is changing at an alarming rate. New data reveals that the concentrations of carbon dioxide, the primary greenhouse gas, have reached a record high of 422 parts per million last year. And that is according to the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service. Now, following another year of record-breaking global temperatures, the urgency to address climate change has never been greater. A recent study analyzing thousands of years of atmospheric gas trapped in Antarctic ice cores suggests that the world might have already crossed the critical threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming above pre-industrial levels. This threshold marks a point where the risk of irreversible and extreme climate change drastically increases. The Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC, a crucial system that regulates temperatures in Europe, is showing signs of weakening. Research indicates it could be closer to a critical slowdown than previously thought. Simultaneously, the world is experiencing a record-breaking mass coral bleaching event, raising fears that these vital ecosystems may have reached a point of no return. Ocean warming is also fueling more intense and rapidly intensifying storms. Hurricanes are now capable of escalating from Category 1 to Category 3 in mere hours, bringing unprecedented levels of rainfall and flooding to inland areas. Increasing temperatures are drying out waterways and forests, creating conditions for devastating wildfires. In the Amazon, record-breaking droughts and wildfires are raising concerns about the rainforest reaching a critical tipping point. Additionally, global forests are absorbing less carbon dioxide, contributing to its increased presence in the atmosphere. Even volcanic activity may be affected as melting glaciers in Iceland reduce pressure on the Earth's crust, potentially leading to increased magma production and eruptions. The scientific evidence is clear. The time for action is now. Policymakers and individuals alike must accelerate efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to the accelerating impacts of climate change. The future of our planet depends on it.
We do detect some acceleration in the last 20 years compared to the previous 20 years. Whether that means that temperatures are going to suddenly rocket up exponentially, that seems a little unlikely. But we're seeing the impacts of the changes that we have. I mean, whether we can formally detect an acceleration in that is what we expect. Right, and we expect that because we still haven't started reducing the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. people live, we are seeing the impacts of climate change on extreme heat. We're seeing it on extreme rainfall. We're seeing it on sea level rise and storm surges if you're in a coastal area. We're seeing it in wildfires. And it is now no longer possible to just say, oh, you know, this is just something that the scientists worry about. It doesn't affect normal people. It's affecting normal people, and it's affecting them all over the world. Well, but there's no normal, because that implies that we're just going to stay where we are, and we're not. Things are continuing to get worse. For us to stabilize global warming, even at the level that it is now, effectively we have to get to net zero. We have to stop emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that's a huge challenge. So, you know, that isn't going to happen anytime soon. And so that means that while that's not happening, temperatures are going to increase and the extremes are going to become more extreme. This isn't the new normal because it's not static. We're still moving, but the baselines are shifting. And so what was normal for the 1980s is no longer the case, right? So if you're making plans based on what extreme weather was doing in the 1980s, then you're way out of date with what's actually going to happen.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Net 25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.